Good evening all. It is Tuesday the 25th of January and I'm back down Southbourne having a little relaxed sesh after work. So nothing strenuous, nothing exciting. Chuck a couple of ray rigs out, hope for the best. Just a nice unwind. Sometimes fishing doesn't need to be any more complicated than that, does it? So last week's Southbourne report was summed up with one word: whiting. By the million. There were bucket loads of them, probably the most amount of whiting I've ever seen down Southbourne, to be fair, which is really frustrating for all those guys who've travelled from all over to come and have a go for rays, because those whiting were snaffling everything, any bait from 30 yards to however far you can cast, really. And it got a little bit annoying. I came down last Wednesday with some really good friends from Wales, Nev and Curly. And sadly, it was a whiting fest. They wanted to try and tick off a couple of species, maybe a thorn, well, not a thorny, small-eyed, I think they wanted. I think they would have been happy or anything. And it was just whiting. That having said, I did manage to winkle out a little thorny on my very first cast, but Liam, who I'm with tonight again, you'll remember him from the Circle Hooks versus J Hooks video, which was quite good fun, Liam, even if I can't count. Anyway, so last Wednesday he did have a thorny as well, which is this cracking effort. That's actually his PV thorny at £6.3, I think he said it was. I'll correct that in the subtitles if I'm wrong. But yeah, lovely thorny, well done, Liam. But that was in amongst the hordes and hordes of whiting. So tonight, get the cameras out and chuck out some rods and hope for the best. I'm going to put up a video even if it is a whiting fest, even if it's not a particularly exciting one. I don't want to constantly put up videos of all my really good sessions, because it might sort of give off the impression that you can go fishing wherever, whenever, and catch loads of fish all the time, that sort of thing, because fishing isn't like that. It really isn't. I've been lucky over the last few months with some of the fishing I've had, but then I've had the luxury of picking and choosing when and wheres and that sort of thing. So I thought tonight it's a rubbish tide. We're fishing just coming onto the neaps, which are the smaller tides. You get neaps and spring tides are the bigger tides when there's more tidal movement. Neaps are the smaller tides when there's very little tidal movement. Generally speaking, on Southbourne Beach, you want the slightly better tide. You want the spring tides, or certainly sort of either side of the spring, because there's not a lot of lateral tide movement down here, even on the biggest tides. Yes, and we're actually fishing it down, so we'll be fishing down to low in about, what is the time? The time is 7:30. Oh, actually, so it's going to be low in about an hour. So I would predict at about 9:30 till about 10:30, I think we're going to have a really good little window, that sort of hour after low. So if I was a gambling man, I would say we're going to bump into a ray, or if we're going to bump into a ray, it'll be late on in the session tonight. Just after low tide sort of area of the tide. So fingers crossed. But like I said, even if I don't bump into a ray, well, I'll put up the video anyway just to show you that that's life. But I'll make it much shorter, so you have to sit through half an hour of me going, whiting, ooh, whiting. Or in fact nothing, I might not even catch whiting, but you never know. I should try my best. I shall report back. Well, I've just brought my first cast in. I always do that really childish thing. As soon as I get on the beach, I've got to get a rod in the water as quickly as possible. So before I set up all me house and me table and me cameras and blah 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 blah, first thing, rod out, reel on it, rig on it, chuck it out. Once I've got bait in the water, then I'll start setting up. I'm that enthusiastic. I hope I never lose that buzz for fishing. Anyway, waffling. I do tend to waffle, sorry. First cast back, this has been out there for a good half an hour, and the bait is as immaculate as it went out. Now, you could look at that as a negative. You could think, there's nothing has nibbled on that bait for half an hour, and that must be really rubbish, there's no fish out there. Or you could think, okay, the hordes of whiting that pestered us last week may well have moved off, gone elsewhere. Which means I can fish my ray bait with just a little bit more confidence that, yes, that bait is actually fishing and it hasn't just got a whiting on it after 5 minutes. So going back to one of my previous videos talking about the timing of my casts, I'm happy to leave my rave out soaks. I'm going to give them a good half-hour soak tonight. That gives me plenty of time to relax and unwind after work and talk to you beautiful people. I don't know what I'm going to talk about all this time. I'll think of something. But yeah, no whiting so far. Just dawned on me why I'm not catching well tonight. I've made a fundamental basic error. And to be honest, I can't quite believe I've done it. All the years I've been fishing, to make a boo-boo like this is a bit embarrassing, really. I forgot my pink beanie hat, my lucky pink beanie hat. I'm going to get slaughtered by my faithful pink beanie hat wearing followers now. I'm gutted. I can't believe I forgot it. I know I'm not catching anything decent. I do have a... What do I have? I have a pink rig winder. I can put that on my head. Is that kind of the same? No, probably not. I mean, it does two things, doesn't it? It keeps my head warm. It does three things. It keeps my head warm. It makes me look incredibly attractive. And it covers up the fact that I might be going a little bit thin on top at the tender age of 27-ish. Give or take. Who's counting? There we go. Never mind. I shall bury my head in the sand instead. Or grow a wig. Grow a wig? You don't grow wigs. Oh my gosh. I think I'm going delirious. The lack of fish has sent me delirious. I'm going to do some pondering and see if I can catch a fish. Well, I was kind of right. The tide has now turned and it's just started that first bit of push and the fish have turned on. I say kind of right because it's the wrong species of fish, sadly. The whiting are now coming in thick and fast, and they are relatively pathetic. I say relatively, I mean entirely pathetic. Annoying little things. But there we go. So, yeah, that first couple of hours of the last bit of ebb, then over flat, low, slack low, was completely fruitless. And now the tide has turned on its way in, the fish have started again. So if we're going to take anything out of this, then that's a little nugget of information to remember. So look at those little bits of tide. And look at that sort of, especially down here, I love it. Just after low. Always have a little feeding frenzy. A frenzy! Right, might have exaggerated slightly there. A little feeding window. But there we go. So a couple of more fish. I've only got another half hour or so left. Yeah, about half an hour left of fishing. So fingers crossed I find something a bit more exciting than a whiting. But never mind. If we don't, we don't. Well, wasn't to be tonight. No Raymondos, but never mind. The last couple of casts just got stripped clean by whiting pretty quickly. So there we go. It was nice to get out, that was the main thing. De-stressed after work, go home, sleep really well because I've had plenty of fresh air, and mull over my failings tomorrow whilst drinking tea in the shop. Not the most exciting video, I'm afraid. I don't think we've really learned anything, have we? Maybe that little bit of nugget about the tides. Maybe if you can just learn that. That's something, isn't it? It's better than nothing. I shall try harder for the next video. The next video will be marlin, sharks and tuna off of Bournemouth Beach. Probably don't hold me to that. Anyway, ciao for now.